Hello and welcome to my channel. This channel is dedicated to exposing watchtower lies, deception and cover up. My name is Marcy and I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses for over 30 years. I served a regular pioneer for 10 of those years. I was first contacted in the door-to-door ministry back in 1987 and I finally left the organisation in 2022. This video is about the two types of Jehovah's Witnesses that they are. And both types experience the watchtower in completely different ways, even though they may be in the same congregation or even the same family. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about the born-in Jehovah's Witness and the convert Jehovah's Witness. So let me just explain what I mean. I am not a born-in Jehovah's Witness. I was not a born-in Jehovah's Witness. I came into the organisation via the Bible study arrangement that they have and they offer on the doorstep to the people outside the organisation. And usually these people who are contacted this way have some interest in the Bible and in God, and they want to find out more about how to learn about God's purposes and and get the questions answered really from the Bible about things that they may wonder about. What happens after they die? Why do people die? What does the future hold? Why is there so much wickedness in the world if there's a good God? Things like this are questions that people who are become converts are quite often got on their mind, and so they start studying about a watchtower publication along with a Bible, and that is how they come in. Now usually they have a much different perspective of spirituality than someone who is born into it. So the other type is the born-in member. These are born to parents who are Jehovah's Witnesses and are in the organisation. So they don't know anything else. They're brought up in a family that worships Jehovah and follows watchtower guidance and doctrines. And the children are quite often taught from a very early age using watchtower publications like the Bible Stories book, and they listen to the Great Teacher book, and things like that. So it's so that is how they come to be brought up. Usually they have what's called a family study. So this family study teaches them about the watchtower and what is expected of them as Jehovah's Witness children. And so the born-in person has a completely different experience. They're given a Bible study at home with their parents, and it's made very clear to them what is expected of them as they grow up, and questions that they have are answered via the Watchtower publications. And so, as I said, they experience the Watchtower in a completely different way to somebody like me. And so both categories of Jehovah's Witnesses, the born-in member and the converted member, exist together in the same kingdom halls and even in the same families, because I went into the Jehovah's Witness religion in my 20s, late 20s, and I had my children after I was well involved with the Watchtower. So I wasn't born into it, but my children were born into it. So the two groups exist in the same family, as well as they may exist in the same kingdom hall. So as a Jehovah's Witness parent, I had expectations of my children, and I was quite a liberal Jehovah's Witness. I was a strictish parent, but I would have been a strictish parent anyway, because I was brought up with strictish parents, and so it never did me any harm to have that guidance. So I was fairly strict as a parent, and I would have been anyway, whether I was a Jehovah's Witness or not. However, as a Jehovah's Witness parent, the Watchtower is always directing you as to what you should be teaching them. Publications are available as they get older. There's book for teenagers, the young people, questions young people ask, to help them toe the Watchtower line. And a lot of it is good advice, I'm not saying that it's not, but the way it is given, you know, the children feel that they are always being scrutinised, and they are always being scrutinised by somebody in the organisation. If it's not the elders, it's your friends, or, you know, something's not right and you're told about it, even as a parent. And you know, I remember I used to go in and out with my son quite a lot. He found it difficult when he was small, and a sister approached me and said, you know, if you make it unpleasant for him to go out, he'll not want to go out anymore in the middle of the meeting. And this is what you'd get. You wouldn't get somebody saying that to you at church, but you do get it said. And so there are standards and things to be adhered to as a Jehovah's Witness parent, and that is passed on to the children. And my children, when I look back, suffered in some ways from feeling that they weren't doing enough, they weren't good enough, and they'd always got to be, you know, on their best behaviour at all times within the organisation. And this is something that I never had when I was growing up. I grew up with parents that went to a church, and there was nothing like that pressure. So the children grow up, or the born-in person grows up and experiences the warnings of Armageddon coming, the pictures in the books that are very traumatic looking, and things like that, which I never had. I didn't grow up worrying about the world was going to blow up or Armageddon was going to come and my friends were going to die and all these things. But my children grew up with that because that's the Watchtower teachings. And so, no wonder my daughter suffered from anxiety. And as I said, although I was quite strict in many ways, I was quite a liberal parent in I let them associate with people who were not witnesses. They had friends outside the organisation. And I always kept that side of it. And I think that's because I was a convert and I wasn't actually a born-in witness. So for me, I wanted my children to be able to mix with other children, to go to their houses, and they had friends that came round who were not Jehovah's Witnesses. So in a lot of ways, although I was quite strict about what they could and couldn't do as they got older, I did allow that. They did have friends, and we did a lot of stuff, and we had a fun time. And I think that's because I wasn't a born-in Jehovah's Witness. So as they get older, there was the council about education and what they were going to do, and and all this. And I was quite happy for my children to go to university, and I wasn't going to stop them from doing that. I didn't agree with the Watchtower on many things, and so because I was a convert, I was quite I kept the things that I thought was important before my children. If they wanted to go to university, that's what they did. They were able to do, and that's what they did. They did both go to university. So which is different to born-in witnesses. Many of them, they just wouldn't allow their children to go to university and do things like my children were able to do, because I had a more liberal view. So as they got older, they decided, my daughter wanted to, she wanted to pioneer at one time. She was very into it. And when she wanted to get baptised, I felt that she wasn't ready and was too young. I think she was about 18, and I said, no, I don't think it's right for you to do that yet. Whereas a lot of parents, the born-in witnesses with the parents, many of them with the parents who were born in, want them to get baptised as soon as possible. I wasn't happy with that, and I didn't think she was ready, and I said to the elders, I don't think she's ready, but they said they felt that she was, and she could make her own decision, and she decided to get baptised. Against my advice, she did. Later on, she left under very traumatic circumstances. She left the organisation. So this is, it was a difficult time for her, but she suffered from terrible anxiety, eczema and all sorts, which was, I think, believed with the stress of being in the organisation and the expectations, because once she left, settled down, she moved out, got a flat with some friends and what have you, and she seemed to, the eczema and anxiety eased. She seemed a lot better, and she seems to have been all right ever since then. So my son, he left home to go to university. He went to Northern Ireland to become to do his degree, and so that got him away from the Watchtower. Thank goodness. I wasn't happy that he stopped going out, because at the time I encouraged him to make contact with Jehovah's Witnesses in Ireland and all that, and he did not. And that was the end of him going to the meetings and stuff like that, and he left. He eventually moved abroad, and he lives abroad. So we've experienced it as a different way. So I have not always been able to relate to people who have experienced it from being born in and leaving. Now, I left, I didn't have anybody in there. I didn't have any family in there. No family came in no matter what I said to them. My brothers and sisters and my aunts and uncles and sister-in-laws and what have you, and my friends, none of them took to the organisational message and when it became a witness. So when I left behind people who were friends, but that was it. And because I'd always kept contact with lots of friends from outside, and got friends at work who weren't Jehovah's Witnesses and things like that, I found it much easier to get out. And so it's been difficult for me to understand the devastation that occurs when a born-in person is either disfellowshipped and all the family is in, or they are sorry, I've just lost my train of thought. I found it very difficult to understand that, sorry about that. But, trying to get my head around what it must be like to find yourself disfellowshipped, or the train of thought was that they decided to leave for whatever reasons they've discovered, that they wake up or they just don't want it anymore, and their family just shuns them. I've never experienced that, and I have come to, through my YouTube channel, I've come across a couple who contacted me. They actually came to turned up at the church where I go, because they knew from my videos where I am, and so they turned up and they said, we've come to see Marcy. And so we got talking, and they are ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, and they are both disfellowshipped. And so we've kept in touch, and this weekend me and my husband decided to invite them to come back to the house, to visit us again and come back to the house so we could get to know them a bit better. And so I'm just not going to go into too much detail because I don't think that would be the right thing to do. But I am going to call this couple Matt and Lily. They know who they are. That is not their real names because they still have relatives and they still have fears about the watchtower and the power of the watchtower over their lives. So they asked me if I mentioned them not to mention them by name. So that I will refer to them as Matt and Lily. So Matt and Lily came around afterwards, and I spent quite a bit of time talking to Lily about her life, and she was a born-in Jehovah's Witness. She got baptised at the age of 11 years old, and I think she said her father was an elder and was quite strict about what he expected of his family. And so she said that as she got older, she was reproved. I'm not quite sure what age she said she was reproved, but by the age of 16, she was disfellowshipped, and so she told me that how that affected her life at home. And she said that she was shunned in the house, that her family did not speak to her, even though she lived in the same home at just 16 years old. And eventually she said that she was asked to leave or thrown out. And so she went to, because she got a boyfriend who was not a Jehovah's Witness. So she ended up moving out at 16 and was taken in by this boy's family. And so, without going into, like I said, too much detail, she eventually broke up with this boy and ended up with someone else who she said was equally as kind outside to her and his family. And so eventually she got together with someone who she returned to the organisation, and she sort of met Matt, and they had so they were together, and then I think later on they split up but got back together again after she'd left for the second time, because she was actually reinstated later on and was married to someone else. It's quite a complicated thing, as I said. I'm not going to say too much about it, but she has children that her parents have never seen. They've got a lovely son who's just 9, and her family's never seen him. She told me that she'd been in a shop with her own mother, and her own mother just completely walked past, never even looked. And so she said she always felt she was not good enough. She grew up with issues because of what happened, the trauma of all that. And so her experience and listening, just talking to her, my husband spent more time talking to Matt and listening to his side of it. Lily and I went in the room and spent a lot of time talking outside that room. So my husband was talking to Matt, who had been an elder, and they had quite a deep conversation, as my husband had been a ministerial servant. And so they had a very interesting conversation. My husband said after they'd gone, and he said that what a nice, lovely man he was. So, but they've had their own, the devastation, the trail of devastation that it's left in their lives. It's really helped me to see the two differences between someone who's actually goes into it and is born into it. And my children, when I was in it, were held up as a model family, a single parent household. Me as a regular pioneer, my children were held up and were on the platform. We were interviewed as a family regularly, and this sort of thing, to encourage others. So, they said to her, she can do it, and she's a single parent. It's very encouraging for others to follow in their footsteps and blah, blah, blah. So my kids had that pressure in a degree to keep up the model family. And I had that pressure to keep up as a regular pioneer. I was expected to toe the line and be seen to be a model and perfect Jehovah's Witness. But I did not experience what Lily experienced as a born-in person. My daughter was 18 and I said I didn't think she was ready to be baptised. And yet Lily was baptised at 11 years old and was expected to understand that she could be disfellowshipped and the results of any kind of rebellion, what that would mean. And that's what happened. So it's sort of, I'm trying to understand. I've just seen, I'm a member of a Jehovah's Witness support group on Facebook, and most of the members in there are people who were actually born in, and they had multiple generations of people who were in, grandparents who've been in, and what have you. And so they've all experienced pretty much similar stories of coming out on that group, similar to what Lily told me on Sunday about her upbringing and how it was. And so this is the rotten fruit of the Watchtower. It's presented as being a wonderful organisation, loving and kind, and in many ways it is, but it's always conditional that you toe the line and are doing what they say you must be doing. And if you don't, then you start to experience the rotten fruit of the Watchtower Society. And so I'm trying to help myself to understand the people who are born into it, who are PMO, and they are, that's physically in, but mentally they've checked out. They don't believe it's God's organisation. They don't believe the teachings. They want to get out, but they can't because it means losing all their family, and they just can't face the trauma of all that. And so to try and understand them and try and understand why they are like this, I got out relatively unscathed. My husband did as well, because he was a convert very much similar to me. And both of us had a bit of a rebellious sort of streak. And so we got out, relatively unscathed, although be it we'd had traumatic experiences, both of us, while we were in the organisation as well. But we didn't have the things happen to us like happened to Lily and some people who are on the support group on Facebook. So which kind of Jehovah's Witness are you? Or were you? Were you born into it? Did you get baptised at an early age? What was that like for you? Did you experience pressure? Were you in a really happy family? Was it later on that you found things out that you didn't agree with? Are you PMO, stuck in that situation? Have you mentally checked out but you're stuck in? Or were you like me, a convert who really believed it was God's organisation, and you were very zealous to bring other people into it, and then you find out that it's not what you thought, and the devastation of finding out that it's not God's organisation. So what's your story? Can you share anything with us on this channel, and just let us know which witness were you? Were you the born-in witness, or were you the convert witness? And what was your experience? I'd like to know. I'd like to thank you now for watching this video, and for I'd like to, if you've enjoyed this video, if you relate to this topic, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. And until the next time, I am going to say bye.